Well, Lagos State has for years been branded Nigeria's commercial capital, owing to the concentration of economic activities in the metropolis. Within Lagos itself, there has also been sustained growth in specialized fields such as science and technology. The exponential growth recorded in recent times at the popular Ikeja Computer Village in the heart of the city goes a long way to underline how much progress that has been made in the direction. And for a little more on this conversation, we are now being joined by TUNBOSUN, ALAKE, Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Technology and Innovation. Thank you so much for coming on Newsday. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Lagos, like any other mega city, faces challenges with housing, water, sanitation, transportation, unemployment. Just recently, a survey by a German firm, I don't know if you saw that report, ranked Lagos the second most stressful city in the world. How is the government using technology and innovation to respond to these problems of a mega city like Lagos? Are we deploying technology at all?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me again. Our philosophy on deploying technology is to try and help raise the living standards of people and foster strategies on how to really embed technology development in Lagos. Our goal is not just to adopt technology, but to also be technology creators. So in 2019, when we came on board, we had a conference called the Art of Technology, where we brought together public sector, stakeholders, private companies, and a lot of people along the technology value chain. And out of that conference came the Technology and Innovation Master Plan for Lagos, which is embedded under the governor's themes agenda for Lagos. And under that, we've been driving a number of initiatives when it comes to data access, infrastructure funding, talent development, and of course, investment in science research and innovation. And so today, one of the things that we're trying to do, especially under the Smart City Initiative, is our 3,000-kilometer optic fiber cable that we mentioned. This is to actually increase the connectivity, because we all know that an increase in connectivity corresponds to an increase in GDP, because things become much more efficient. You can deal with a whole lot of more institutions, banking, housing, government activities also become more efficient. And so these are where our investment strategies really drive our technology agenda, where we are trying to put in some of these resources and infrastructure to help raise the level of technology development. And of course, startups as well are also embedded in the middle of our development agenda. So we are investing in research, we are building infrastructure in different sectors to help raise the living standards of Lagosians through these things.
Okay, I'll take up from that, because I came across a statement where you said it's not enough, which is what you're saying now.
Yeah.
It's not enough for government to be seen as innovative. They have to be seen as supporting innovators. So I want you to appraise yourself and maybe give us, if you have, success stories that can encourage those listening. Because it's no secret that Nigerians, particularly the younger sector, are very innovative. So how successful do you feel you've been so far in bridging the gap between government and the ecosystems that you discovered, say, in Yaba and places like that?
Right. So in January of 2020, we reignited what we call the Lagos State Science Research and Innovation Council. That council is responsible for driving science research across our universities and also funding and investing in startups. So to date, we funded about 22 startups. Around an average grant size funding of around $10,000 and more. And we've also invested in about 16 to 17 research initiatives across 4 colleges of education and universities in Lagos. In fact, last week we got our first patent a month and a half ago. So we developed an ambu-bag ventilator with the University of Lagos. It was a multidisciplinary team that came up with that invention. And what it is, when you compare it, so I just put it into context, why we did that. What it is that at the time of the COVID outbreak, we had a ventilator shortage. In fact, throughout the whole sub-Saharan continent. So how do we develop an equipment that was more attuned to our own needs locally? Average price of ventilators are around $15,000, right? So how do we develop something that is more attuned to our costs or revenues here, and something that is perhaps more deployable to rural areas? So we came up with that ventilator invention, and we just got our patent for that. It's going through clinical trials now. Once that is done, then the possibility of mass production becomes a real reality.
I know you stated about patents, compared to China, 500 patents, we about 50.
Yeah. So what that drives our science research investment. We need to up the level of our invention, science research, because it's research that leads to invention. And so that gives us the opportunity to become technology creators and not just adopters. Because when you create more value, more long-term value for the economy. And that's what drives these investments.
And I was just going to ask you, what are the lessons Lagos is learning from the pandemic when it comes to deploying technology to some of these problems? But you've talked about, creating locally the ventilator. But are there any other lessons we've learned, ahead of the next, say, pandemic, to be better efficient? But in terms of numbers, you've also spoken about fixing unemployment, supporting the creators.
Right.
But can you give us numbers? If we were to speak about numbers, what's the employment like that you're creating with your sector?
Okay, great. So, I had mentioned we funded about 22 startups last year. Some of them are doing quite well. One of them actually just won Royal Academy of Engineering Prize in the UK. They invented a non-electric ventilator. And we've been following up with a lot of startups that we funded. So out of, as a direct or indirect result of our funding, we created about 35 jobs just from those fundings last year. We are doubling down, we are increasing investments this year as well into those startups. And for the first time, we're also going to start our venture fund, where we invest with other private sector players, and we can sort of, for companies that have the potential to scale and solve massive civic challenges, if they require more money, then we can also deploy that to them. So we started last year, even in the midst of the pandemic, we were able to achieve this even when our council could not meet. So, but this year we are definitely increasing our investments in the tech startups. We're able to create some jobs, like I mentioned. We're hoping to do much more than that this year. And we're hoping to support more researchers in the universities, because we do need to focus on our colleges of education and improve the education base through these investments.
Okay, just to educate us more, you spoke of 4 major pillars of innovation. Right. You spoke of access, infrastructure, funding, and talent.
Yeah.
So, and then you then specifically highlighted something you called Open Government Initiative.
Right.
So tell us more about that and how that has then led to some of these 4 pillars you spoke of.
Okay, so the Open Government Initiative is under the data access pillar. What we realized was that for development in Lagos, for technology development, and of course multi-sectoral development, you need to have data, right? I was at a Google session one time, and one of the developers said, why do African countries like hiding the data?
Yes.
And we're like, look, he has a point, right? And so we begun this march into becoming a much more open government. So we started the Open Government program that deals with digitizing millions of data sets across the civic environment in different sectors, in health, in transport, in energy, and so many others, right? And what we do is that we make this data available to decision makers within government, because when you have the data, you know how to better target your investments. You know exactly where to develop, and you also know how to, if you subject that data to AI, machine learning, you can better forecast, say, what the state will be like in a couple of years. So these are some of the activities that is characterizing the open data initiative. And we also want to make data available to citizens, to public sector, other public sector players, private sector players as well. Because, for instance, if somebody knows the number of hospital beds, right, in a certain area, can they design a better resource management application, right, for that? And that's what the philosophy behind open government is really about, right?
Mine goes to things like telemedicine.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you're aware of the EcoTelemed app that has been managing COVID patients, right? And there's a lot of data that is being garnered from that. Some of that data will be very helpful for internal stakeholders to better manage, the third wave that we are in currently. And we are digitizing not just real-time data, but also historical data. We spoke earlier about the Enterprise Geographic Information System that is going on at the moment. There are a lot of, that seeks to digitize land administration management in Lagos.
Does it stop land grabbing?
Well, to a particular extent, if you have data dating back all the, say on a piece of land, you have data dating back all the way to, need I say, antiquity, right? And let me even tell you, on our journey in digitizing data, we saw land records in Lagos dating back to the 1870s, right? That the British signed, right? So if you are able to get data on a piece of land, you are more able to value that land, right? You unlock capital, right? And that goes to the heart of economic growth, economic development, and all of that. Accurate records also prevents land grabbing. The courts are much more efficient in their land adjudication.
Encourages foreign investment as well.
Encourages foreign investment.
You're probably striking all the right chords for a lot of people listening, especially with the funding, because when it comes to technology in Africa, we see more funding coming from the West. So when a state like Lagos decides to fund technology and innovation, it should be encouraged. Well done. But let's talk about security specifically. In recent times, we've seen an upsurge in insecurity in Lagos State. And I recall the governor launching body cameras for state-funded law enforcement officers. But we are yet to see those on the streets with these law enforcement officers. Is there a snag, and what's responsible? When are we going to begin to see those body cameras being used?
So with any implementation of a project, there are phases of deployment, right? So definitely very soon you are going to be seeing them much more proliferated on the street. It's in phases of development. They are in the beginning phases now. So as they move on to phase 2, phase 3, you will probably see more of those body cameras. But in relation to security, to better answer that question, we're also deploying technologies in other areas. For instance, one of the first implementation pillars of the smart city is the intelligent surveillance system, right? Currently, we have deployed about 150 smart cameras across different locations in Lagos. What these things do is that they help with security surveillance and transport management. So there are some junctions in Lagos now. If you run the red light, for instance, you'll get a ticket. Say if you go to renew your if you go to renew
how you track the offenders down.
So because your license plates are registered to a particular address or particular name, so when you go and renew that registration, you will be slammed or
so
otherwise.
No more climbing into cars. We'll have to leave it there. There's so much more we'd like to ask you, but thank you so much for given us your time.
No problem at all.
TUNBOSUN ALAKE, special advisor on technology in Nigeria. Thank you so much, in Lagos.